My name is Kimberly Gress, and Rick Nucci asked me to come here today to talk about the experiences I had at Del Boomi with regards to customer. Hi, guys. There's the Boomi team over there. Boomi, say hi. Customer support and success, and the observations that I made, especially with my transition from 17 years in on-premise software to now a software as a service model. So today, I'd like to quickly go through the paradigm change that has occurred with the subscription economy. And what I'm going to be sharing with you is really tactical observations that I've made. And I do want to remind everybody that this is an evolution. We did not accomplish this in 1 year. It was accomplished 3, 4, 5 years. But I want to share it with you today so you have that thought in your head from day one. How am I providing a great customer experience in this new paradigm shift with not incurring crippling costs? So I want to hopefully share that clearly with you. Also, I'm not going to discuss commonalities that are present between on-premise software and software as a service. So if I do bring up any type of terminology that's not familiar, just wave your hand. I'll be happy to explain it. And I'm not going to evaluate customer success as an account management function, and you'll know why in the next slide. I am breaking a lot of rules today. I'm going to have a lot of words on the slide. I am recovering from vocal surgery. So if there's a point during the presentation where you see I have to stop, feel free to read the rest of the slide, and then I will re-engage. A little bit about me. I spent 17 years at SCT, which was bought by SunGard. At SCT, I developed software. They moved me into management because I wasn't that good at developing software, and I managed an R&D group there. Then I did 3 acquisitions. I managed the acquisitions and the company assimilations. That was a trip. And then I ran a business line for them until I was recruited to go work at Boomi. Huge change for me to go from an on-premise model to software as a service. And so that's the learnings that I will share with you today. So starting with my definition of customer success, there's a lot of definitions out there. It was about like 2009. I really had the sense that this practice started to grow. And you, as you do your research, you will see that customer success has many different definitions. My definition of customer success is that you are focusing on the customer's success. And a result of doing that is that primary mission of your customer-facing teams, which is retention and growth. And to discuss the paradigm shift that I saw moving from on-premise software to software as a service. By definition, you're providing a service to your customers. They no longer have that software on their own servers, so they are expecting you to always be there for them. And as a provider of a software that's a service, you're now an extension of their team. So I encourage, as you're thinking about your customer base, you have to remember that they've given up a certain amount of control to you, and therefore they are expecting a higher touch. I bolded the word market there, because one of the things I learned when I moved from the on-premise software to software as a service, when you released a new version of your on-premise software, there was a trickling of installations of your customer base. So if there was an impact from your software, you could catch it within those first couple of customers, rectify it, provide a solution. When you have a single instance of code base for your software as a service, if you push out a defect, that is a market impact. It's no longer just a customer impact. So you have to be prepared to address that should it happen. Now the subscription component was also something that took me probably a year to really understand. With the on-premise license fee model, customers paid a big upfront license fee and a yearly maintenance typically. With the subscription component, your customers are coming in with a very low upfront investment, and if you are not providing the service that they expect in today's world, it's very easy for them to leave you. And for those that of you have been studying, SaaS metrics, you know that you are incurring a cost for acquiring a customer early on. And if they leave you within a certain amount of period, you've lost that cost. So when I left Del Boomi, it was 17 months from when we brought a customer on until we actually made money from that customer. So it was really important that we were focused on that customer and earning their business every day. So I just, really highlighting customers that are using cloud-based software nowadays, they expect a really high level of touch from you. And because of that high level of touch, and because of the length of time it could take you to recover your cost from acquiring a customer, you really have to think about how you can build a higher level of touch while deflecting costs. And I'm going to review that as we go through. Now, this slide, when I presented it to another company, originally said culture, SaaS culture, but I just didn't feel that was the right title for the slide, and it's something I just wanted to share for everybody to consider when you look at your organizations. Customer support and success are now strategic functions. If you're from the on-premise model or spend any time in that model, you know that the support teams were never considered strategic. Even so, when it came time to ever cut costs seemed to be cut there first. Not with your software as a service model. These people are the relationship builders with your customers. They are the ones who, if the customer has a bad experience, is going to make it so that they continue to stay with you because of the service they provided. When it comes to across your organization, as you begin to grow, I feel very strongly that customer retention needs to be a goal of every employee. So if an issue does occur, every employee is working together to make that right for the customer, whether it was a miscommunication during sales or an issue that went out with a software release, making sure that all employees are engaged to solve that issue. And I smile at the last one here, but I truly believe that Del Boomi was really successful in providing a good experience to our customers because the R&D team, the success team, and the support teams were very tightly integrated. It didn't start there. It was an evolution. And that evolution was driven a lot by working side by side, thinking about how we can provide this seamless experience to customers, and putting processes in place so that we could all react appropriately should we need to. So I'm going to move into the four major observations that I made in my transition from on-premise software to software as a service. Those are the seamless, holistic customer experience, trust and transparency, proactive and passive support, and predictive support. When it comes to seamless and holistic experience for the customers, what I learned at Boomi is the customers, when they are working in your product, they expect you to be there with them. They should never have to leave your product or navigate somewhere else to find answers or seek support. It should be readily available for them there. They know, customers are very smart, and they know that we have all of their information, so why wouldn't you be able to provide them experience of support right within your application? I do want to highlight something there that says touch and hold model. This is a support model, and I said I was going to leave out support commonalities, except for I do want to point out I do feel that this is a great model for software as a service unless you are truly a high transactional business like a mobile phone service. In a B2B world, touch and hold is giving that customer that one relationship that they will stay with for the life of their question or their issue versus being passed from representative to representative, which you would call a tiered model in the support world. When you have that touch and hold model and Pete is there with them for the life of that support case, they have, I think, an increased level of confidence that Pete is working there for them. So moving on to some best practices, and I'm going fast too because I have 22 slides and I only have a few minutes. Provide support to all your users no matter what their subscription status is. However, consider moving expensive support methods to paid for support offerings. You may not be able to do that, right, when you first start out. This is an evolution that I'm asking you to consider. Always provide mission-critical support to all your customers, no matter what their subscription status is, and make sure you work on that so it is a quality experience. However, when it comes to making sure that your high-touch experience is not incurring really high costs, look at those expensive support models. Chat is very expensive, phone is very expensive, email. All of those are expensive because they're unstructured. So you really want to look towards providing support within your application through some type of portal or exposed right there. And again, I already think I mentioned this, live where your customers live. So try to provide support right within your application, whether it's a self-service deflection model or some type of anticipatory support where based on where they are in your application, you may already know their next question and you can expose it in your application. I always try to get people to think about TurboTax. So if you've ever used TurboTax, as you're filling that out, do you ever notice on the side it's already trying to answer your questions? So that's what I mean by anticipatory support exposed in your application. And do the best you can to combine all your information into one place for your team, 360-degree view of the customer, because they know we have all their data. So there's no reason why when you get a phone call from Bill that you don't already know his story. And he doesn't have to start all over to explain what his experience has been to date. So look for tools that will provide your customer-facing people that entire history. I talked about this earlier, so pardon me. I'll only spend a few seconds here. Because your customers have now given up control of the ability for them to maintain their software on their servers, they really have to have a high level of confidence in us. And we have to always look at ourselves as part of their IT team. So we must be open and transparent with the issues that we may be having. Whether it's a performance issue or, God forbid, you released a defect that affected their financial payments. But being transparent, letting them know how you're solving it, is going to give them that higher level of confidence. So then moving into the first best practice there, I feel like this is old news, but just in case it isn't, is providing to your customers a trust site. I think Salesforce was the first company to do this. Boomi had a trust site. And it was a site that would provide information to your customers about the status of your application. How is the performance? When are release issues being fixed? Any type of downtime notices so they could be prepared for it. Trust sites are significant deflections. What I mean by that is if you were to have a performance issue and you have 1,000 customers, that is going to completely overwhelm your support team if they have 1,000 calls and cases coming into them. But if you've conditioned your customers to look at this trust site, that amount of incoming demand is going to be reduced. And I have number 2 here, which you all already know, which is providing anywhere, anytime, any device support. This was in here when I was presenting to a company that was an on-premise company looking to convert to a SaaS model. But it's what everybody expects nowadays, in that if your customer has a mission-critical issue at 1 a.m., that anybody that's customer-facing and assigned the duty to help that customer can provide that support no matter where they are. They shouldn't have to navigate into an office or even VPN into a server. They should be able to provide support from their iPad, their iPhone, and provide it quickly. I highlighted support expectation clarity here only because customers should understand what your support processes are and anticipated response time. If you have that somewhere for them to see, it's going to reduce the amount of any type of expectation conflict that can occur. Developing a customer success team, and remember my definition of customer success is making sure that the customer is successful. So I feel very strongly in putting a team in place that is focused on making sure customers are adopting your product, engaging your product, that they understand where your customer may have come from so they can provide a better success plan to them. I do not think that customer success teams should be account managers focused on increasing sales. It is a natural result from a team focused on making a customer more successful. It's just a natural result, and we saw that at Boomi with an increase of retention and upsells. Number 4, just very quickly, is when you do have a market issue, it's really important to understand how you're going to handle that. We called it a rapid response team at Boomi. Literally, when I left, you could hit a red button, anybody, whether it's a support engineer, R&D person who may have come across proactively something, you could hit a red button and it would text everybody who needed to be involved to solve that problem, and everybody would then call right into a war room, and the rapid response would start from, communication, how we'll communicate on the trust site, who will start fixing it on the R&D team. And of course, automate as much as you can around your process. Moving into proactive and passive support. Proactive support, I define as support that comes from us out to the customer. So having some type of analytics in place that can see that a customer may be utilizing too much of our memory, and we need to reach out to that customer, or seeing that a customer started using a piece of functionality that won't fit with maybe what they were trying to do before, but for us to reach out to them and help them. It's different from the passive support, which I was explaining earlier, which is how can you provide support within your application that's answering those customers' questions before they have them, or if they are actually starting to look for that question, how are you providing it to them in a self-service manner to deflect the cases and costs that come into your organization. The last bullet around leveraging the data that you have in your system. I thought Boomi was brilliant in some of the approaches they took, and R&D worked really closely with support to implement some of these. We had all of these customers' information. We knew how they were using the system. And so R&D was able to provide to the customers examples of how other customers were using Boomi. So it turned out to be a great deflection method for the support team in exposing those type of examples to the customers. So that's one example that Boomi capitalized on. Another one, and it was just towards the end when I was leaving, where the R&D team was working with the support team for when the customer was experiencing an error message, being able to click on that error message and go to Boomi's knowledge base to get answers. So making it very easy for the customers to find their answers and not having them navigate out of the application. And I think I've talked through some of these already. Best practices, finding those reporting utilities that will provide insights and alerts to the customer-facing team to work with the customers to solve a problem before it is a problem. This was a huge customer satisfaction enhancer for us, and again, promoting trust with the customers. Now, as I talk about community knowledge, I'm not talking about a forum. When I talk about community knowledge, I'm talking about all of these self-service type of tools that come together to form your community of knowledge, whether it's a customer forum, your knowledge base, on-demand training, anything that can train that customer and make them more knowledgeable without contacting your support team. There was a tagline that we had in support that we wanted to achieve. Our support utopia was anytime the support team or customer success team was contacted, it was new knowledge to us. All other questions we should have answered somehow and exposed it in the product or in the knowledge base. So our support utopia was only incoming requests from customers were new knowledge. We didn't get there by the time I left, but we were definitely on our way. So as another commonality that I do want to point out for those that are new to support, because support is a whole area that can be discussed as well as customer success, so I'm trying to blend the two in the SaaS model, is using your users to help build out some knowledge and supplying it in the community. The tribal knowledge effect can be a huge cost reduction to your organization. So it gives you the ability to focus on that higher touch that you want to give customers. And again, you're looking for these cost deflection methods, such as getting your users to help answer questions for other users. So the last best practice that I really want to highlight is looking into having a community engineer in your organization. And that's defined many ways, so here's my definition. To me, a community engineer serves almost like a product manager. And that individual is looking across all assets in your organization to determine how they can be served up to a customer in a way, again, that's answering their questions and providing them this self-servicing before they need to ever come to your resources in your company. The community engineer should also be focused on driving adoption and looking how you can increase the success of onboarding your customers. So I almost look at this as a product manager. I do not look at it as somebody who is just building content, but they're looking across your organization on how to bring all your assets together, expose them to your customers, and hopefully integrate them within your products. So predictive support could probably have a lot of different names, and I put it in here as predictive support. And to me, this is a customer-specific approach, so not mass approach to all your customers. It is taking that data that you have and looking for things that may become obstacles or challenges for customers and bringing that to your attention so you can reach out to those customers and help them through that obstacle. And in Boomi, we called this predictive assistance, in that we started trying to predict those customers that were in trouble. And it was very simple when we started, based on stories that we had of our customers. And as I was leaving, it was evolving into more of a predictive analytics model, which I was happy to see. And when you're reaching out to these customers that you know are going to hit this obstacle, a natural result of that outreach was upsell and growth. So it was that was a nice byproduct. However, it wasn't our focus. So the best practices here is starting small. Like I want to say again, this is all an evolution. Boomy's predictive assistance started on a picnic bench when we were asked from our investors, can you predict churn? And I was on a picnic bench with two of the leaders in client success, and we're like, of course we can predict churn. We have all this data. We've seen what makes customers successful. So we can absolutely predict that churn. We can look at our data and we can pull out those customers who are struggling. So we started small, we did a report, and then we would work through that report once a month and contact customers and help them get through obstacles. And then, of course, you need to be able to think about scaling, so we started to automate all of that. So that report was eventually integrated between our Boomy Atmosphere product into our CRM, which was Salesforce at the time. And that integration was an alerting system to the customer success team that said, it's Monday morning, we see that Bellcom is having a problem, they haven't been able to develop a certain feature in the past 3 weeks, you need to reach out. And then my team could react to that situation. It usually resulted in training, possibly professional services, and there were times too that we uncovered that customers needed certain features that they didn't license in the beginning, but their use case had changed, so we were able to help them through the use case. I do want to point out there, for a SaaS business that's so focused on customer retention, when we started our predictive support, our retention was around 88%. As the predictive support measured our customers' health, and we reached out to those that weren't healthy, we also saw our retention rates grow. So when I left Boomy, they were north of 94%. Along with doing this type of predictive support to your customers, having a 360-degree view of your customer is important. I think that's kind of been a theme as I've been discussing these slides with you, is being able to provide that whole history of the customer, actually to your entire organization. So if anybody ever has to engage a customer, they have the ability to see how they were communicated through the sales process, possible expectations that they may have had, how their service implementation went, if you have a strong service delivery to your component, seeing all of the cases that they've had, and even looking at the level of the cases, so you have an idea where this customer may struggle. So if you can bring all that data into like one place for your customer facing team members, that will help provide a better experience to your customer, and it will also reduce internal thrashing and cost. I'm going to end just talking briefly about moments of truth. You may have also heard this called customer journey mapping. So once a year, the customer success team would conduct moments of truth, and they would look at the customer's experience from the first time they visited our website to the sales engagement, to services, to support. And we would look for areas that were really crunchy for the customers and how to smooth that out. And as those areas were identified, we'd pick 3 to work on for the year, and we would engage team members from across the organization into what we called customer advocacy teams. So we would have an individual from R&D, sales, marketing, finance. We had the finance people participate as well, customer support and success, to solve that crunchy moment that we saw for the customers. I really loved that approach because I felt that across the organization, everybody had an opportunity to see how customers were impacted and what their experience was. It would also help with employee engagement, because when an employee feels like they can help own a situation and solve it, I think you always have that better result. So I wanted to end with moments of truth. might be a little off topic for predictive support, but I didn't want to leave that out of my presentation. So before I move on to any questions, I would just ask everybody to consider, as you're building out your solutions, how do you provide a high-touch customer experience and deflect your costs? So look at things that could be self-servicing, look at how to provide a smooth method for your customers to contact you, and look for how you can build out that community of knowledge, which is a combination of whatever you find works for your solution. In Boomy's case, we had a peer group, combining that with our knowledge base, our on-demand training videos, and documentation. So I'm going to end my presentation here with 9 minutes to spare. Is there any questions about what I've presented today? Taylor?
Did you read my name from there?
Yes. And plus, I know Taylor. We both worked in the garage together.
Yeah. So mine's a little bit specific, but I was wondering if you had any idea of like specific generalizable data that was really impactful for everybody to know about a customer's story. So let's say I'm new to the company and a customer contacts me for support. You mentioned that having their whole story kind of like, at your fingertips was really valuable. Is there anything specifically that you saw that was really impactful put in that story? I know you mentioned a couple specifics.
So Taylor is asking, is there any type of generalized information that we could apply to any product for when you're talking to a customers and you're giving them that experience that you understand their whole story?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through it. That's a hard one. I am struggling not to be Boomy specific. So I'm actually going to go back to a support example, a support in general example. And of course, it's maybe based on your product, but when you have incoming support cases, you will define them differently. Was this support case a simple question? Like, how do I populate the amount field? I know that's a silly example, but you'd call that a level 1 support case all the way down to a level 3 support case. A level 3 could be something seriously deep in your product that does require a training session, like a reactive training session with your customer. So trying to answer your question, depending on your product, you could see that customer and see that they're always asking these level 1 and level 2 questions. Like, they're not even getting to the deep stuff. So I think you can make generalizations that the customer is just struggling to begin with. Like, they're not getting past the basics. Versus a customer who may always be asking very deep questions, those support utopia questions that bring new knowledge into you. That's a generalization that you can, this is a power user. So it's kind of hard, but I'm reaching for that one. I don't know if that was helpful. But thanks, Taylor, I appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes?
You talked about the crunchiness of some of the clients and customers and how you guys are looking to identify basically those pain points. What did you do to find those pain points? Is it just the data that you're getting, or was it actually talking to the customers, or how did you get to those three most important points that you focus on?
We started off anecdotally, which was the leaders and customer-facing team members talking about the customers that had the deepest challenges and how we could identify it, and it was really simple in the beginning. So the alerts to us in that first version of that type of predictive support was, have they logged on? Have they developed anything in the system? Are they running production data through the system? Are they transacting finance data, like how are they engaging? So it started off very anecdotally. As I was exiting, that was becoming more deeper data analytics and looking further into customers that may touch a certain feature but didn't have another feature available to them. So we knew they were going to run into an issue. So I started off very small. Is that helpful? Yes.
So maybe we can take a look at this from the other side. I am a customer of a very small startup that I think has only one support agent. And I think she's a multi-tool in the company, and she happens to do so as well. Is there anything that I can do? I tend to think that I'm a power user of the service, so maybe a little bit more needy. Is there anything that I can do in maybe the conversation to maybe get prioritized or make it kind of feel like I'm not just bothering her? Like, how do you see it from the other side, how would I relate to, what I mean?
Oh, I'm right with you. So what I'm hearing is you're a power user of this system. So when you're calling in, right, I'm using your system deeply. I'm not an interruption to your day. What I am bringing to you is probably a pretty serious issue, correct? So a couple of things I would say about that is you as a customer should have the ability to define the severity of what you're bringing in. And I think that was one of the bullet points on my slide, and I just kind of didn't touch upon it. But customers should be able to tell their provider, hey, this is a big deal for me. I can't move forward. I would also say to the provider, again, they have all this data on it. They know that you're calling in level 3 type of issues.
Does it matter this email communication? That's my struggle is I can't get email answered quick enough without saying in caps, like major issue, in the subject line.
Yeah, so they're a startup. They're going to evolve to a better solution. Email is obviously their support solution today. So I would put in your title line severity 1. If possible, I would engage if they have a product manager, I would engage their business owner to let them know that you're one of their power users and that what you're bringing to them is like new knowledge. So you're here to help them as much as you need them to help you. And it would be great. I bet that startup would love to have you contribute at some point to maybe their knowledge base or their peer community once they build one. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yes, JJ Ferroni.
So you talk about getting buy-in from different departments, R&D, et cetera. How have you seen that work best in getting the goals to align to get, for instance, a developer to really want to be involved in customer success?
Just so everybody knows, JJ Ferroni was the sales director of Boomi and one of my biggest pain points in the beginning.
Mine too.
Oh, yeah, and Mitch's too. But at the end, we had a really well-oiled machine, and JJ was very innovative in helping me do that. So to answer your question, JJ, Boomi had a few things going on when I left, so I'm going to use my Boomi knowledge again. There was a meeting that happened, I think weekly, between customer support success and the product team to discuss those high priority issues, how we can react to them, how we can innovate to them. There was also a weekly meeting that we called our shelling meeting. In the beginning, I bought the food out of my own pocketbook to lure R&D and support together. But they turned out to be really great knowledge-sharing meetings. We were innovating so fast on the R&D team that our support team was like WTF when we'd get phone calls from our customers. So having those shelling meetings, which was a knowledge transfer from R&D to support and then support back to R&D was hugely helpful. And then, of course, there was tools in place where we were able to, as cases came in, transfer those cases over to the R&D team. I see Mitch laughing. Is it bad memories for Mitch? They were good. Shelling was good. Did that answer your question, JJ? Yes. I got 2 minutes left. I'm getting waved at by that very kind man over there. Any other questions? I hope this was helpful. There's a whole world of support out there. There's a whole world of customer success and how people approach it. And then I feel that there's this crazy intersection in the software as a service business model. So if I can be helpful in any way in either the support type of approaches, success approaches, and the combination thereof, I'd be happy to help out. Kimberly at tesorio.com or kimberly.gress@gmail.com, or find me on LinkedIn. So thank you very much. It was really fun to be here today.